Welcome to Epiphany number 8, make 1,000 prospecting attempts. This one is very interesting because it sounds like it's just a good round number that's kind of pulled out of the air, make 1,000 prospecting attempts. But it really comes from two different places, which is fascinating that these two places converged to come up with this. They came to the same conclusion. So as most of you that watch this channel know, I've been doing this for over 3 decades in terms of hiring and training and developing financial advisors, investment professionals. And one of the ancillary benefits of that is that you get to see people's businesses that is different from yours. You know, every advisor has a different more market, a different niche market, a different way of prospecting, way of presenting. Some have a higher closing ratio, but they prospect less. Some are really good at prospecting, but maybe their presentation of their proposal isn't the best, or it's average, but then their closing's great, or it's not great. You get the idea. So everyone's different. And so I've trained hundreds of advisors over the years, and you see differences in people's businesses and similarities that an advisor on their own wouldn't. I've said oftentimes that, you know, with 10 or 20, 30 years of experience training advisors, it's really a lot more than 10, 20, or 30 years in a way. Because someone who's a solo advisor may be doing it for 20 years. You could almost argue they don't really have 20 years of experience to have 1 or 2 or 3 years of experience 20 times. But it's the same experience. Sure, your 3rd year is probably different from your 1st, and maybe your 5th or 6th or 7th is different from your first 2 or 3 or 4. But your 15th year isn't really much different than your 9th year in terms of, I don't mean in terms of success, but I mean in terms of the way you do things and the way you talk and your personality and your sales and closing influence skills. But when in 10, 20, 30 years, when I'm observing many different advisors, new advisors I've hired from other firms, and you get the idea, right? So doing that and also being somewhat of kind of a numbers guy, kind of distilling it down to the essence, to the basics, what I came up with a conclusion over many years is this thing that I called the 50,000 income game plan, which I won't go into now, but essentially it's just what it sounds like. It's a very surface level, high level game plan of what a newer person or any person has to do to make 50,000. 50,000 isn't that much, but for getting started in a sales commission type business, it's not bad. And if you want to make more, then you just do multiples of the plan. But the plan basically, it starts with the first thing, which is prospecting, right? Prospecting, and then setting an appointment, and then how many proposals that you're creating, and then going back, presenting and closing the client, follow-up, referrals. And that's basically about breaking it down into numbers. And what I've found is that people follow these numbers, then they'll make around 50,000. Of course, it depends how big your cases are, and it depends what, commission rate is, all those variables. But basically, you're doing the work that it would take on average for an average commission rate for an average rep in an average market to make about 50,000. Maybe you'd make 35, maybe you make 95, and I've seen both extremes. But if you're doing that level of work, well, without going through the whole plan, the first one is always prospecting, because as you know, prospecting is the key to the business. Essentially, you get paid to prospect. You don't get paid to run financial plans, to do strategies. You don't get paid. You don't even get paid to close. Those are all natural consequences of prospecting. Of course, there is work involved in each of those steps, and you can do better or you can do worse on any given day. But the ultimate step is, if you prospect enough, you'll figure out the rest just by osmosis, because you're doing it so much. Well, what I found out, and I can't even tell you when this was, it was quite some time ago, but it was years into doing this, which is that if a rep prospects approximately 1 to 4 brand new prospects, or makes 1 to 4 new prospecting attempts every working day of the week, and does that for 4 weeks out of the month, and does that for 50 weeks of the year, you can take 2 weeks off vacation. So you do it 50 times, 50 weeks. That's the start. Everything else, I don't care how good you are in closing, how good you are in fund selection, portfolio, and all that stuff matters, but it doesn't matter that much. What matters is getting in front of people, and getting in front of people is prospecting. That's all it's about. And that's the number. More important than what the script is, though that's sure, of course it's important, but people focus way too much on it. Of course it's important. You can't be a goof. But 1 to 4 new prospect. I say 1 to 4 because for those of you that aren't familiar, is I spent many of my years training part-time and full-time. I was in a number of companies, and all of them had some kind of part-time flavor. So people had a regular job, regular career, and doing financial services on the side. And I think that's a great opportunity because people that would normally never be in the business now have a chance to be in it. Well, the part-timers, they're not going to do that. They're not going to prospect 4 people 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. It's just not going to happen, right? So so that's why I say 1 to 4, right? So at a minimum 5 to about 20 a week. And you do it. And the problem is you have to do it consistently, right? You might have a good week and go, I'm going to do, or beginning of the year, I'm going to do this. I'm going to crank it out there. I'm going to get going. So you're on that track. And then all of a sudden, right, the New Year's excitement wears off and you're back to kind of business as usual. And now you're not doing 1 to 4 a day anymore. You're doing 1 to 4 a month, which is actually not uncommon. Not even a week, but a month. Well, if you have a good week and you have a bad week, well, then the third week you got to make it up because it's a consistency of 1 to 4 over the course of a year, as you'll see in just a moment, right? So you can't have a great week where you're doing, let's say on average you did 3 a day. That's really good. And the next week you blow it and you do like 2 for the whole week, 2 prospecting attempts for the whole week. Well, the third week, when I get back on the bandwagon, it's not back to 1 to 4. You've got to make up the previous week. Right? You can't just pat yourself on the back when you do it right and then ignore the weeks that you didn't do. You got to do it consistently to get this thing done, right? To get your business up and running. Like you can't prospect 1 a week and think, well, at least in 20 years I'll have some success. It doesn't work like that. There's a dynamic about a synergy where the sum is greater than the individual parts. There's got to be a collection of a lot of things happening at the same time. And by the way, the 1 to 4, what that'll lead to? That'll lead to 2 to 4 actual appointments with new people. And then the game plan goes from there, which I won't get into today. So by studying reps, I realized that pretty much is pretty consistent across the board. Some people have more success. They have a great warm market. They have incredible people skills, way above average, whatever the case may be. And they can maybe prospect 1 a day, maybe. And then other people, they're the opposite of all that. They really better do 4 a day. But I'm telling you, if you do 1 to 4, make 1 to 4 prospecting attempts. Now, a couple more things. One is that these are actual prospecting attempts, and it's not calling the same prospect over and over again. You still should be doing that. It's called follow-up, but that doesn't count for this. This is someone you've never talked to before. You've never tried to get an appointment before. If you're attempting to get an appointment and you've never tried to get an appointment with this person before, that's what counts. Okay? So it's not that and by the way, it's not hard, but it's not easy. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. It's easy on paper. 1 to 4 prospects a day. I could do that in 15, 20, 30, maybe 40 minutes max. And I'm done for the day. Yeah, well, it's not that easy. Okay, I get it. But it's also not that hard. It's just the same thing over and over and over and over again, right? And you'll learn all the objections to scripts. They say this, you say that. They say that, you say this. There's only so many things they can say. There's only so many different reactions they can have. Figure it out. We have all the training. But the point is to get over it, right? It's not that big of a deal. So that was one thing I came up with. Then in actually 2000, I'm going to look it up until I get it right. So in 2012, Nick Murray, who obviously we follow almost religiously on this channel, in 2012 did a conference call for a fund family. And in that conference call, and I studied Nick Murray, I've read like every word he's ever written. Okay, and I studied, and I've never heard this before until this conference call. He distilled. Here's what he said. It's one sentence. If you say our prospecting question, which is the coffee script, but that's not the point here. The point is if you prospect to 1,000 people in the next 12 months, at the end of that time, you will be at the top of this profession and you'll stay there for the rest of your career. Wow. Now, not only, again, is that a nice round number, and he has added a time frame to it, which is 12 months. But when I thought, oh, that's great. I've never heard Nick's. That must have been something new he came up with. I don't know. This is 10 years ago. This is in 2012. And then when I thought, I said, well, I wonder how that fits into what I figured. So I looked at the game plan, and it blew me away when I compared it to our game plan, specifically the prospecting, is if you do the math, it's the same, which maybe probably you guys have figured out already. I didn't figure it out the first sentence. I didn't put the 2 and 2 together. So if you do 4 prospects a day, 5 days a week, that's 20. And you do it 50 weeks a year, right? Again, take 2 weeks off for the year. What is that? It's exactly 1,000. 50 times 20. It's crazy. It's like, wow, he did not pull that out of the air. Because I know I didn't pull mine out of the air, right? I was actually studying and talking to, observing reps, seeing what they're doing over many years. So I know mine didn't come up, but he came up with that, and it's like, holy smokes, right? Now he even added a time frame to it in that sentence, which is saying, look, you got to get this done in a year. And so that's what I meant in the very beginning of the video, is these two different kind of sources or came to the same conclusion, like down to the exact. And it's funny because I always had said, hey, take 2 weeks off. But what I never did is I never actually summarized it to 1,000. It's so weird when I think back on it. I never said, hey, that's 1,000. I just simply said, 1 to 4 a day, which is basically 5 to 20 a week, and you do it 50 weeks a year. That was the end of the statement for me. I never mathematically summed them up to 1,000. And even though I did say 50 weeks, I just told people, hey, you just got to do 1 to 4. But this is great because it's in 1 month in 1 year. And one of the benefits of that, as I alluded to earlier, is there's this kind of doing work in bunches, doing work, having a synergy, because there is a difference between, let's say, doing 1,000 in a year than doing 1,000 in 5 years. There's just, when you have, it's better to have 3-4 appointments. I hate to even say this because I don't want people to use it as an excuse, but I'd rather you have 3 appointments in 1 week and then take 2 weeks off. Well, I don't know about that. Well, if you had to choose between the two, yeah, rather than 1 a week for 3 weeks, only because you learn so much more and you get in the groove better, right? And it's the same thing with the prospecting. It's not that prospect number 922 knows that the last time you prospected was 2 years ago for number 921. So it's not like that. It's you. It's like, because if you're on a game plan, on a roll, there's just a different vibe, right? The osmosis of what you're learning, and you become mentally a little bit hardened, and I mean that in a good way, in terms of rejections and resistance and objections. So that's why that's important. The other thing is, he didn't say it explicitly here, but if you really did that, what's going to start happening is you're going to start getting referrals. See, that's why he's saying you'll stay there for the top of your career. He's not saying you have to do 1,000 prospects every year for the rest of your career. You probably should do it for a while, but until you've got to where you need to be, where the number of referrals coming in is equal to the amount of work that you want. Right? The old saying is, if you get good at prospecting and you do prospecting, you can be as busy as you want to be. And then the extension of that is, once you build a big enough client base and you treat them well and service them well, you can get enough referrals to be as busy as you want to be. And what he's arguing here, if you will, or proposing, is that if you get to 1,000, make 1,000 prospecting attempts to 1,000 different people, that you'll probably be in that situation, right? So that's really, really powerful. Now, again, having said all this, I'm under no illusions, and I don't want you to be under illusions that it's easy, right? 1,000's a lot, but I'm going to tell you a secret. Most people don't even. Most reps have been here 10 years, have never even done 1,000. Because you get a couple good ones, you're in warm market, you get referrals, you make some money, you relax a little bit. I've done it too. I've done it on my side, on the recruiting side, on development side. It's the same thing. Okay, though I have done 1,000. When I first moved to California, which was in 1999. Cold market, and this is internet, but internet wasn't widely used. I mean, even texting wasn't really used that much, because I remember when people started texting more, and it was after the fact, because I did it with my team. But I had zero warm market, and I went in the phone book, and I made 100 cold phone calls a day, 5 days a week, and I can tell you how long it was. It was from basically the beginning of March 1999 to about August. And that built the first wave and the first base of my business way back then, from scratch. I had no clients. I had no advisors. I had left them. I moved from Maryland. I had left them all back there. I had some clients, but there was no referrals. I was way back then, I couldn't do business through the internet across the state. So I kept my clients, but any referrals they had, I gave them to reps that lived in that area. So from scratch. Now, again, this is recruiting, which is a lot more numbers, prospects you have to go through to get any, to hire someone and then hire someone that actually produces. But the concept's the same. Now, also, it was cold market. So the flip side is that you could argue it was almost easier, though it was more grinding work, because you pick up the phone. Just pick up the phone call, and it was literally 100 a day. And as soon as I got the 100, I was done. If I was done by lunch, I was done. I went for the number, not for time. So I get the grind. I have not done 1,000 client prospects in a year. I will admit that here, but as a trainer, I'm telling you that this will work. So that'd be a game plan. Now, maybe it does take you 18 months or 2 years. Wonderful. I wouldn't wait longer than 2 years. Then you're only doing 2 a day. But team, I'm telling you. However, whatever message you want to take, whether you want to take the end result sum, which is 1,000, which is really the epiphany here, right? Get to 1,000 prospecting attempts. Or you don't want to focus on the 1,000, you want to focus on the low-level activity, which is 1 to 4 every day, 5 days a week. And then just how long that takes, right? You skip this week, you skip that day, I get it, okay? But whatever you do, I would definitely track your numbers. So you know how you're built. Some people are good with recognition, some people are good with competition, some people need encouragement, some people want to be left alone, some people actually, they don't admit it, but I've seen it, they actually need negative encouragement. Believe it or not, they need, right, someone grinding a little bit. And you got to figure yourself out. So again, maybe maybe you need that time limit. I got to do it in 12 months. Or for you, if you want to open time limit, but I just want to get to the number. Or it's the grind, it's the daily 1 to 4, 1 to 4, 1 to 4. However you want to do it, doesn't matter. But one of the benefits of having, and I'll close with this, one of the benefits of having like the 1,000 number, whether it's in a year or whether it's just open-ended, and or having like the daily goal, or maybe you just do it by week. I need to do 5 to 20 a week. Okay. One of the great builders in this business, like 4 decades ago, said he'd have his goal every week. In this case, it was a number of appointments, I think, is the way he set his goal up. And if by Friday night he had them, he got the weekend off with him and his family. If by Friday night he didn't reach his goal, then Saturday he would work. He wouldn't work Sunday, but he'd work Saturday. And his family would bitch and complain about it. Next week he got going, and he did it to himself. So maybe you do something like that. Hey, my goal is to do 20, and if I don't do 20, I'm going to work on Saturday, make up the difference, and as soon as I'm done, I get to play with the family. But the idea is get it done by Friday. My point is that I think it would behoove you and me, anyone, to have a goal. Again, set up any way you want to set it up, but have that goal. I know you get tired of goal setting. Every every self-improvement book, every business book says have a goal, and they're right. And we hear it so much we get tired of it. It's like, I'm just going to go do. I'm going to go work, man. But have the goal. So however you want to set it up, revolve it around 1 to 4 or weekly or 1,000, and do or don't put a time limit on it. I recommend you do it. If you don't want to do it in a year, maybe you do it in 24 months. And then focus on that activity instead of getting too caught up in the outcome. Listen, if you've been here 5 years and you're only closing 1/3 of your appointments, we got to work on something. But in the beginning, just focus on the activity. Just like, I don't care what, I know that you do care what they say. Of course you want the appointment to be set up. Of course you want them to say yes to a proposal. Of course you want the proposal to look good and work out well. And then of course you want to present and close it and all that. Of course you want that. I'm not going to pretend. But I am telling you that there is something to be said for removing yourself somewhat from the outcome and focusing just on the 1,000 number. And if you get 1,000, this is what I used to tell new reps or newer reps. I said, listen, because they want to know everything, right? And so sometimes they want to know everything there's under the sun before they do anything. And I get that too, as a technical person that I am. But really, at some point, when you keep doing that, it's really just a method of avoidance. It's like the people that get CFP, CHP, this license Series 6, Series 752, they get all this crap without doing anything or not doing very much, because it really is just an avoidance behavior. Same thing here. I can't prospect because I don't have the answers to all the objections. Well, why don't you just go start prospecting? And as these objections come up in the field, in the wild, in the real life world, in IRL, then we'll handle it, because most of the objections you think people are going to give you don't happen, or they happen very, very rarely. I've got objections in our training program that, like, I haven't even heard in 10 years, but they're there because somebody wants the way to handle it, right? What I'm saying is, so instead of what I would tell them is, look, I'll give you some meat and potatoes. I'll give you some objection handling. I'll give you some stuff. But at some point, dude, just get to 1,000. Go make 1,000 prospecting attempts and record them, by the way. I mean, notate them, right? Spreadsheet or something. You don't have to make it detailed. Just when I was doing cold calls, I literally have a piece of paper and write check 5, check 5, check 5. As soon as I had that, 20 times, I was done for the day. Then just throw the paper away. That's all. That's how I did it. I wasn't recording who it was and all that stuff. Just make a notation that you did it. What I would tell them is, look, make you a deal. You go get to 1,000, and then come back to me and tell me all the things that aren't working. Presentation is any good, our handling objections sucks, our proposals aren't any good, the client base is terrible, the economy's this, all this. Go do because all this crap that you're worried about and thinking about, right, in your head, most of it isn't even true. The stuff that is true, the clients don't even know it's true. And most clients, there's like 3 or 4 objections that make up 90% of the objections. And you'll get them right away. And after you get to 20 prospecting attempts, you already experienced all of them because the next 20 are the same. So now in real life, of course, I wouldn't wait till I had 1,000. I'd help them out, but I definitely told them, listen, you got to go like a month and do 1 to 4 a day, 5 days a week, do that 4 times in a row, and then come back to me. Because now it's the old thing about you can't steer a parked car. You're asking me about driving technique and you haven't even gotten out of the garage yet. Just go drive around for a while, safely. But drive, so you get it. Now you got some reference point to start learning some stuff and asking the question. You realize that you probably answered a third of your questions yet anyway, just by going out there and doing it. Same thing in prospecting. Okay. So I don't want to be too long-winded here, but I am saying there's a lot more to it than just giving you here's a number of 1,000. So focus on the activity. Track the numbers and focus on that more so than you're focusing on technique. When you're out in the wild and you're getting an objection or you're getting some kind of resistance or something's not going right, yes, of course, then come back to the drawing board and then figure out what you have to do to solve it. But don't get too caught up in here before you start doing. Just start doing it. All you got to do is learn the coffee script or whatever your script is. Just master that one thing, and then when you get objections, you write that. You go back to the training, figure out that objection. And then to handle that one and master it, that's another thing most people don't do, and then keep going. But most people want to do all this other stuff before you actually do the work. Just do 1 to 4 every single day. And that's the saying I used to have is prospecting 1 to 4 a day keeps poverty away. And as Nick said, you do 1,000. If you can do it in a year, you will never have to worry about really, you should always be prospecting. I'm not prospecting much anymore, and you'll be the top of your profession because I'm telling you, almost no one does it. So you be the one that actually does it. Take care.